Hello, this is Andy Seeley with Creatively Disruptive, and this is a family business. We're talking to different business owners and professionals in the game of working with families and kids and activity centers and even just local small businesses that like to serve households and family businesses. So today we're really lucky to have, I should bring this over to me and make it sound a little better. We're very lucky to have Nicole Langevin. I've known Nicole for feels like 50 years, when she was born, or probably before she was born. And we're very lucky to have her today. And she's going to be sharing with us some of the stuff that she's getting up to and what she's doing and what's made her successful. And some of you might not know or might know, you might have seen her before at many congresses, national and regional. She's a very popular figure in the training of coaches realm. And it's very exciting to have you here, Nicole. How are you?
I'm great. Andy, how are you?
I'm very good. So, you've done lots of things. What are you currently up to? What are you doing?
Lots of things. Still doing lots of things. I am, depending on the time of year, I kind of follow what the needs of the industry are. So all year round, I'm doing a lot of staff education. But what I've been doing recently is taking on gyms for an entire year of consultation, which is great because instead of just giving them a bunch of information and hoping that they're able to apply it, I get to stick with them throughout the year through the different training phases and provide them information that's pertinent to that part of the year. So I'm in the middle of that right now with a handful of clients. Choreography season is coming up, so already just got back from Washington to do the first trip of the season, and there's a lot of choreography that's going to be coming up this season, this summer, which usually goes to like August, but last year I had a bunch in November. So, the choreography season is typically summer, sometimes can extend into fall. About to get on the road and do some training camps over the summer as well, both Canada and the US. And then, as you mentioned, speaking at congresses.
It's exciting. Sounds busy. I know your summers are always crazy busy and you can never, get 5 minutes, but it's exciting. That's good. So let's ask a couple of in-depth questions. So tell us a little bit about what makes what you do special, because I've watched you for years, and at times we've had little fun at congresses, and you've kind of made me look like a fool, which isn't that hard to do.
My favorite.
And there's something special that separates you from others. What do you think it is that makes you so special?
I mean, you're the one that said it. What do you think makes me special? Oh, you weren't ready for that, were you?
Personality, I think. Personality, gobs and gobs of personality, but also a very, I would say, it feels like not being a gymnastics coach or a gymnastics expert, which you are, I would say a very clinical, sharp, very focused, clear explanation of what to do and why to do it. Does that make sense?
I hope so.
With a little bit of personality to it.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. My through line to everything comes down to, and this is when we're talking about the speaking engagements and coaches education, is that gymnastics is the hardest sport in the world. It is the most complicated sport in the world. And because of that, our job as gymnastics educators, coaches, clinicians, is to make it as simple as possible. That's my through line all the time. And I think that's where the effectiveness comes into play, is that I understand the complexities and the science behind it all, but that's not what I'm teaching to people. I've found, I hope, and I think, and I've heard the simplest way to explain things to get the same results as if you understood it at the highest level.
And I know it's not just coaching of coaches, it's actually kind of management of teams and coaches and staffing and stuff that you're really good at. We've worked together on a number of projects with gyms and so forth, helping sort them out. We've done some really good things there. Bringing that back to that, what do you think makes a special group of staff? Like when you're looking at going through a gym and trying to help sort out their staffing, what is it that you're looking for to help build a really special, using the word special, I guess, continuously? What do you think makes a special group of staff members?
Number one, passion for the actual content, for the actual sport that they're teaching. People that want to constantly get better at what they do. I mean, that's part of what I define being passionate about something, is you're wanting to understand it more and more. You love it so much that you want to understand everything about it. It's like being in love, right? You fall in love with somebody and you want to hear everything about them, what their favorite color is, their childhood memories, everything. And I think it's the same thing about what you're working in. If you're passionate about it, you want to understand all of it. And I think staff that want to learn creates an incredible environment. I'm always surprised when I hear head coaches tell me that they offered for all their staff to go to Congress and nobody wanted to go. I'm like, whoa, that's a problem. You want staff that's like, yes, I can't wait. Okay, how many things can I get to? Oh, these 2 things are happening at the same time. I wish I could go to it all. So that right there, when I'm looking at the dynamic of how the staffing can be most effective, I'm looking at what is each individual person's strength and weakness, and almost more importantly, what are their goals? Because those 3 things right there are going to show you why people do the things that they do. And a lot of times will show you why maybe there's some butting of heads sometimes, which happens, I think, in any industry. So for example, if I have a coach out on the floor and their one goal is to, develop an elite athlete, and that's all they want to do. That's their driving force for going into the gym every day. They're going to make a very different decision on a day-to-day basis versus somebody who their job or their major goal is, I want every kid in this program to leave here as healthy mentally, emotionally, physically as possible. That's going to cause a different choice every day. I'm not saying you can't do both, but what I'm saying is there's going to be more pressure for that coach who's trying to develop an elite athlete to stay on the event longer, to demand a bit more excellence, we have to get this skill by this time because we're on a timeline, versus somebody else that might go, hey, you know what? This doesn't need to happen today. Let's chill out a little bit and let's go back to something that feels better. So you're getting their own driving forces, making them make decisions every day. And if they're not in line with each other, or if people don't understand that about each other, their philosophies are going to be different. So it's not to say that everybody has to have the same goal, but we have to understand what they are and then align them with the actual, what is the philosophy of the gym.
So it sounds like, there's an element of inspiration that they need to have that's kind of internal, that they want to be there and they want to learn, and they, having a staff that's excited to be there and maybe not just turning up because they've got nothing better to do kind of thing is important. And with that, talking about inspiration, I guess, is, what inspired you to get into this business? Like, what would you say would be kind of one of your proudest moments? Because I've seen you, when we've worked with gym owners and so forth, turn their gyms around, and just so you know, anybody that's out there, Nicole and I have worked together with multiple gyms which have been really struggling, and oftentimes it's been where the gym owner is kind of like burnt out and done and has no more gas in the tank, and we've worked with them to turn that around, sometimes to the point where we refill their gas tank so they can continue going, and other times where we help them kind of put themselves in a position where they can actually get out in a way that is good for them. So what's inspired you to get into this just general business? I find you inspirational. I find you, when I meet with you, you're fun, you're knowledgeable, you've got lots of energy, you care. What is it that got you into this business? And what do you think, if you chose a singular moment that's happened to you in the last 400 years, what was your proudest moment?
You just get older and older throughout this interview.
Exactly.
Okay. There's a lot of question there, so I'm going to try to make sure I'm strategic about making sure I get to all of it. What made me want to do this, and I would say the rest of that question is, rather than do what most people in my path did, which is coach and eventually become head coach, which I did do, and I love that role, and I love seeing people grow into that role. And I think that as an end game goal is an incredible one, because it is very, very hard to do. With me, I felt like I had kind of done what I was going to do where I was, and I was starting to feel just this sense of, I want to make an impact beyond these 4 walls, meaning the gym that I was in. I loved where I was, but I was just feeling like I had the ability to connect with people. And I know that sometimes that's just people are just born that way. And I recognize that I have that gift to connect with people, to translate information to people that makes sense. And I had done it when I had gone and spoken at congresses or done clinics. And I just felt like that was my calling more so than anything. I had done a lot in these four walls, but I really wanted to get more of an impact out in the world. So that's why I stepped out of my traditional coaching role and really focused on the consulting side of things. And I just wanted to see, is that a thing that people do? When I did it, it wasn't a thing. There wasn't a choreography company, right? I was the first one to really do that in the early 2000s. Being a professional gymnastics consultant only, I didn't know anybody that was doing that. I knew a lot of people that were doing it on the side, and I admired the hell out of it. And then I just was like, that's all I want to do. So yeah, that was kind of that drive of just going, okay, I the carrot was dangled. I know what it feels like. I know what I can do impacting other people. I'm going to go in my style. I can't kind of do stuff. So I'm going to go full force. And that's right. All I'm going to do. I mean, as far as proud moments, there's a few. One right now is that I just started the process, asked to create the compulsory routines for Special Olympics International for 3 of their compulsory levels, which is like one of the biggest honors that has ever happened. And that wasn't a goal. That wasn't something that I knew even was like a thing that was in the running. But to be able to just stay in this industry and care about it so much for them, this opportunity to come up, it did make me feel really proud. I've made an impact enough to be able to make this sort of impact, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And those kind of opportunities come because of years of work, and it's not like you're trying to make something happen. It just evolves into something that happens.
Yeah, I didn't apply for it.
A good sign that you're doing things right, I think.
I hope so.
So, what do your customers, the people that you work with, I've seen some of the customers that you've worked with and the results that you've got for them, but what do you think they love most about working with you?
Again, I think a lot of it is just the ability to make really difficult concepts digestible, something that they can actually implement. I also think, something that's been coming up a lot with these new annual consultations that I have. What I do is I go into the gym periodically throughout the year. So anywhere between 3 and 5 visits per year. I go into their regular classes or practice, observe, jump in, give modifications, give suggestions. Maybe I'll run something for a little bit, and then I follow them up with a Zoom session with all of the things I saw, suggestions on how to implement, and then we're able to connect even in between so that I can keep up with how they're implementing and how it's going. And I think one of the things that people have been really happy about is that I don't just do the high-level stuff. I've been able to go in and help them with their preschool classes running smoother, their recreational classes being more effective and more engaging for the kids. Just kind of being able to tap into kind of every level of what they do, because it's not all about this tiny upper group that, they're making the least amount of money off of. We all know
Right.
that. Team gymnasts do not make your program a lot of money. And so I think just to be able to have that through line throughout the entire program and to help, and then just to be there for the support. And, I did it and I'm doing it. I'm still coaching 2 days a week right now, just compulsory floor, because
Right.
I want to keep my hands in it. So, yeah.
I think a lot of other, and this is just from what I've seen, is I think a lot of other people kind of love how you are a connector, because you do connect a lot of people together. You say, hey, I know this person, you should work with this person, or hey, I know that person, you should contact this person, or hey, blah, blah, blah. And I think, connecting people is a bit of a underrated skill set that I think you have, which I think is appreciated by many. So let's think about making decision making and big differences that are made. So, what's the single biggest move that you've made that made the biggest difference to your success?
Probably the most recent one, which is, I spent so incredibly long trying to build my name in an industry where I didn't have a name. I wasn't an elite gymnast. I mean, I was a okay level 10. I didn't coach elites, right? I didn't, and this is when I was trying to build my name. I didn't have that behind me, but it was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to have that level of knowledge to be able to do all of that. But I didn't have the background to just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and now I can come into your gym. I had to really build a name out of nothing. So, going back to the what are you proud of? I am very proud of the fact that I was able to do that. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of just constant every single day, taking that next little baby step of learning more, imparting more. And it did get to a point where I was walking down the street at Olympic trials in 2024, and there were 4 Olympians that stopped me to talk. And it was just this moment of like, whoa, this is kind of like, I did it, right? And it felt really great, but it also made me realize that I could just be my own thing and didn't need to create such a big weighing, I don't even know what to call it, with the business that I was running. I was building it and building it and building it, and I was kind of losing myself and worrying so much about building other people up and giving other people opportunities, which is wonderful, but I completely lost myself. And it was in that moment on the street in Minneapolis where I was like, wait a second, I'm enough on my own. I built the name. I can just do this. I can take it back to basics. I was feeling like I was losing the personal touch with clients. I wasn't having the connection with gym owners and coaches because it was all me just sending other people and trying to check in. And I just made the decision to kind of have this full circle, go back to my roots and what was it like when it was just me doing it on my own. But the difference now is that I do have a name that's recognizable.
Right.
And it was all worth it. But that's been the biggest change and the scariest thing that I've done in a very long time is to walk away from that and just go back to my roots. And it's been really great.
Get back into the flow. It sounds like for a long time you got out of the flow, right? And I'm a big believer in doing things. Sometimes they seem scary, but they feel right. And when you do those things and you go into the flow, the natural flow of things, and you kind of feel it, it's like a state of calm. And you might be working really hard and doing loads of things, but it feels easier. It feels like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like searching and doing that is important. And a lot of business owners tend to lose that. The struggle pushes them out. And I always call it that they kind of like try to swim across or upstream rather than with the stream. And as soon as you find how to swim with the stream, everything feels better and starts working and just falling into place. And it sounds like you've definitely made that decision and doing that. So that's really good. So just a couple of fun questions here. So, if your business or what you do was an animal, what would it be? And why would you choose that animal?
Well, obviously a monkey.
Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, a monkey. I would have said monkey, actually. You're a monkey.
I mean, Andy, you've seen me swinging aimlessly from branch to branch for years and somehow turning it into something. That's often what I feel like is that I'm just swinging and letting go and catching and, I'm taking that chance that I'm going to catch the next branch. Monkeys are also adorable. I think there's the obvious gymnastics connection to that animal. But yeah, I think it's just this like constant state of motion, almost perpetual motion. What I love about watching them in action, and I'm thinking about the little guys that are like on their tails and they are swinging on the branches, you're never scared that they're going to miss it.
Right.
It's just like, wow, how are you doing that? And I often feel like that. And I don't know. It's kind of a...
I think that's entrepreneurial.
Right?
There's a lot of entrepreneurial things with that as well, isn't there? Where entrepreneurs are kind of like they're doing the stuff and no one really knows how they do it, but somehow they pull it off, and it's perpetual motion, and you got to keep moving. What's a behind the scenes moment in your career that when you think about, you laugh about it every time you think about it?
Well, there's a couple that involve you. I don't know.
Okay, share it. Go. Share one of them.
One of my favorite things that happened was when I was presenting at GAT, and you said to me, I'm going to heckle you. And I said, bring it. And I was speaking in front of, I like when you tell the story, but it was a really, really big crowd. And you thought that you were going to kind of like sneak in on the side without me seeing, but I obviously saw, but I didn't let you know that I saw. And I could tell out of the corner of my eye, you were, see. And then as you say it, you just realized, what was going on and that you just absolutely couldn't bring yourself. Because
right. I thought you were doing a good job, but I couldn't bring to interrupt this amazing work that you were doing.
So then you pivoted and you started to walk away, and I said over the microphone, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Seeley, did you have something to say?" And for the first time in my life, you were speechless.
I didn't have anything to say.
And that, dear friends, is what's called the reverse heckle.
Yeah. And
that might be one of my proudest
200 eyeballs went from you to me, and I'm like, see ya.
But that's also something that I thank you for just doing that, because when we were talking earlier about, what's different about what you do or how you do it, it's things like that. Like I want people to see the real person outside of just talking at them. And I try not to talk at people. I try to make it a conversation. So to have moments like that too, I think just connects everybody. It gives everybody a laugh. It's like, okay, you're a person outside of this room and this microphone. Yeah, so I don't know. I appreciated that, and it was just very fun to see you speechless also.
I think it's funny. Let's look, we've been working together for a little bit. We've been friends for a long time, and we've been working together. I mean, we've probably been working together for a long time on different projects and so forth too. But Creatively Disruptive, the company that I own, has worked with you. So before you were working with us and so forth, what do you think you were struggling with and unsure about?
Having an overview of what I was doing. I feel like I was very much just flying by the seat of my pants a little bit and making decisions in the moment based on what was happening in that moment, and then not really having a grasp of how it all looked and came together, which is ironic because with clubs, when I do, like, one of the biggest things I do with them is annual training plans. And I look at their entire year and I'm able to break it all the way down to sometimes the minute of a given day. So I have the ability to do that, but I wasn't applying it to what I was doing. And it's obviously a very different beast, right? Annual training planning and looking at, the business that I was running. I think, one of the best tools was when we were getting ready to do a first campaign, and it had something to do, I think it was clinics or something. I was on the phone with one of your team members, and we must have spent 3 to 4 hours, not in one sitting, but like over the course of a few phone calls. And she was just asking question after question because she did not know anything about what I did. And it forced me to have to think about my business in a way that I've really never had before. And think about, who is my target audience for this specific thing during this specific month? What are the trends? What is the tendency? How do I wasn't analyzing any of that. I was just doing. So with you guys, it really gave me this like forced perspective and like forced analyzation of what the heck it was that I was doing and why.
A lot of businesses fall into that. They get, especially technicians, right? I think of biz entrepreneurs and people that don't really care about the business that they're in. They just love the process of building businesses. And then there's technicians that love a certain thing that they do, and they build a business around it. So what often happens is technicians tend to very quickly fall into the day-to-day, and they don't think about the 3-year plan. They don't think about what the global kind of decisions and what they're trying to do to drive things forward. And I always use the analogy of, it's a little bit like technicians oftentimes fall into the habit of, instead of charting the course of the SS Nicole Langevin and going, okay, I'm in the captain's house, I'm looking at the charts, we're in this location, we want to go to this location. What they tend to do is they run out on decks and they're scrubbing the decks and pulling up the sails and painting the boat and everything, but they aren't thinking, where am I trying to go to? And it's a very typical thing with technicians, and most gym owners, most dance school owners, most swim school owners, most even lawn care people, bakers, hairdressers, all of these people that are technicians, really, that you own the bakery because you love baking, tend to get caught up in the day-to-day and the week-to-week rather than the quarter-to-quarter and the year-to-year, which I think is really important to get people back into that. So when we started working together, what do you think surprised you the most when we started working together?
See, I have to stop myself.
If you could talk about me, it doesn't need to be our business.
Well, I remember, so when you and I first met at GAT, at the end of the convention, you said, okay, well, let's set up a time to talk so we can figure out how you're going to take over the world. And I was like, wow, that's a big statement. But then to realize that like you actually did kind of mean what you said, and not just a attaboy pat on the back type comment, but an actual like, no, there are things to do that you're not doing that we can help you with.
Right.
So to see that, like that statement actually could be, I'm not saying I'm anywhere near running the world, but the general statement was, to maximize what you're doing, and to realize that like there's actually like a team in place and strategies and systems, and this is a thing that you do on a regular basis. Just that on its own was eye-opening.
And I think when people hear take over the world, I think it's take over your world, or take over the world that's important to you. Because you taking over the world is not necessarily something you even want, but maybe taking over your niche, your area. And like if it's a gym or a swim school or any kind of kids activity center, dance school, taking over your community. So when a mom or a dad or whatever is thinking, I want to get my kid into something, you're the first thought. You're the only thought in their head, because you've taken over that world when it comes to that area. And I think you've done a reasonably good job of that. I hear a lot of people talk about you, and it's always very good stuff. So congratulations, you've done really well with that. So how do you think and I know it's kind of feels like I keep asking these same questions over and over again in different ways, but what kind of things do you think you've changed from a day-to-day operation since working with us?
It just made me be more mindful and strategic and not try to just do everything, to start thinking about, okay, who actually needs to hear this information? Who is this clinic for? Who is it benefiting? Is this the right time? Just being more strategic about what I'm doing instead of just trying to blanket do everything.
Okay. I'll ask one more self-serving question. What would you say to someone who's thinking about doing a revenue growth session with us? And I'll just let everybody know that revenue growth session is, we think of ourselves not as a marketing company, but as a revenue growth company. And so the first session where we were talking to somebody is figuring out what revenue that they want. And from that becomes what profit they want. Because obviously, the old adage, profit is sanity, revenue is vanity. It's not about how many kids you have in your gym. Sometimes we actually have some clients that they don't want more kids. They want more profit. They want more revenue. They're scared of having more kids because they literally don't have any coaches to coach them. That's a whole other issue that we work on. But where we really focus is growth of revenue and an expansion of profit. So what would you say to somebody who is thinking about going through that process with us?
Oh, I'd say absolutely. If you're just going and wanting things to, quote, get better, or you just want to make more, yeah, everybody does. But are you willing to actually go in and figure out the daily decisions that you're making on a regular basis to actually make that happen? And that's what you guys do. You help people understand the decisions that they make every day, or the decisions that they can make differently every day to actually affect the bottom line. Not just, oh, I want to, but actually, figure out how.
Okay. I've got one final question that I want to ask everybody on these interviews is, what's one thing that you should be thinking about with your business that you're probably not? What's one thing that business owners right now that should be thinking about that currently maybe aren't, that you think that they should be thinking of?
A big thing I would think about is, and this is, I steal this from Jim Collins, who wrote, I think it's Jim Collins, From Good to Great. Do you have the right people on the bus, and are they sitting in the right seats? And a lot of times I see people, they're either on the wrong bus. I tell coaches all the time, sometimes nobody is better than the wrong buddy. If they're not they don't belong on your bus, they don't need to be on your bus. But once they're there, are they actually sitting in the right seat? Because if people are doing the things that they are good at, and also the things that they want to do, they're going to be more productive. And I think it goes back to that very first thing we talked about, like understanding the people under you and what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are their goals, and making sure that their job really is appropriate for what they're doing. Like you said, you don't need to be out on the deck, scrubbing the deck when, you're supposed to be managing the ship. And I think a lot of times it's just a little convoluted as far as job descriptions and just overall like staff efficiency, staff happiness, fulfillment, all of that.
I mean, that's really good advice, because I always call it putting people in the area of genius. If they're doing what they love, they're going to find their genius. They're going to stay around, They'll probably even be happy to get paid less, because typically what ends up happening is people end up getting put in positions that they don't like, and then they start saying, I need to get paid more to do this.
They're resentful. Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the reality is there is no amount of money that you can pay somebody to keep them long-term in a position that they hate. But you put them in a position that they love, they stop feeling that they're working, and they could be there forever with you. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. You're always a pleasure. I always love chatting with you, and I'm hoping that I might be seeing you sometime this year in our travels around the United States. I'm actually going to Cedar Rapids tomorrow to do a lecture in Cedar Rapids about growing revenue for gyms. So going to Region 4 Congress for USA Gymnastics, which is exciting, and doing a lecture there. So I know you're not going to be there, but it's really nice seeing you, and we're going to have you back. So thank you very much for joining us in It's a Family Business, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me.